Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA. With me, Seamus Brady, your host. I'm joined by Peyton here, and I'm also joined by Oisín from Third Man Tackle GAA. Oisín, how are things? Did you enjoy the weekend? Great
Oh yeah,
round of action again.
yeah, it was brilliant. As you can hear, I lost my voice shouting at the Armagh boys to light a fire under them. As I was telling you off air,
Yeah.
being an Armagh fan is very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, you don't do things the easy way. We'll start with your game. 17 points apiece against Mayo in the Athletic Grounds. Like, talk about a game of two sides, really. There were multiple stages there where Armagh looked like they were going to wrap it up. Mayo looked like they were going to wrap it up. Just talk to me about the atmosphere of that game. Like, it looked like a crazy game. It lit up in the second half after quite a slow first half.
Yeah, like it was like a championship game. Honestly, like I have been to worse championship games. It seemed like all of Armagh was there, and they were just on board. As you said, in the first half, we were kind of cruising in a way. Like I really was quite surprised at how tame Mayo were. I was thinking, this is going to be a big scalp for us. And then, as Armagh do, they don't do things easily, as you said, and they took their foot off the gas. And Mayo, like I'm not saying it was all Armagh, like Mayo really upped their game in the second half. And as you can hear from my voice, there was a lot of support needed, I think, from me and from everybody else in Armagh.
Yeah, definitely. And Luke, obviously, so there Oisín said, correctly, Armagh kind of got the upper hand in the game. Mayo, I think one of the biggest things that they did to change the game was pushed right up on Rafferty's kick out. Now, he had shown, signs of being a bit nervy about his kick out. You think about the one that went straight to Cillian O'Connor, which should have ended up in the back of the net, let's be real. Mayo pushed right up on the kick out, particularly in the second half. Aidan O'Shea, I thought, really came into the game. Matthew Ruan with a lovely point to level it up at 10 each. Was that to you one of the key moments in turning the game?
Yeah, look, it probably was. And then I suppose when they got to the stage with the 5 points up, they abandoned it a little bit and started protecting and invited Armagh back on them as well. I think teams will probably look at that with Rafferty a bit, that when you push up on him, that some of the stuff that comes with him not being a natural goalkeeper as well is that you can find some of that. Like, he should have probably been punished for that O'Connor goal. Well, he definitely should have been punished for that.
Definitely.
I don't know what. I don't know how that didn't end back in that, but no,
it fell to the right man as well. It fell to like you would have picked either O'Connor or O'Donoghue for that ball to fall to.
Yeah, look, exactly, and I don't know, I couldn't believe it when that went over. But no, I think Mayo got a few things right. I think there was always kind of this idea that Max Day was, I don't know, I always, from watching him for years back, that he seemed to have this romantic notion of pumping a long ball into a big man in the edge of the square. So I don't think it's a big shock to see that Aidan O'Shea has gone back in there as well. He played very well there yesterday. Whether that's the solution later down the line remains to be seen. I think it's been tried enough. And that's, look, if we go back to a stage when he's taking marks, like, can you actually back him to be able to kick a mark straight in front of the post? I'm not sure if you can. So that's the issue I have with Aidan O'Shea going in there, is that I just don't know if you can get enough value out of that when you come up later on the year, when you're coming up against the likes of Jason Foley in there as well, or when Sean Kelly's in there as well, whether he will actually be able to do it. But yesterday, look, I think he was man of the match yesterday as well, and he did cause a lot. I do think he's more effective around the middle though, and if you can get him playing out around there, I think he's way more suited out there, and it spares him kind of. I know he's not comfortable kicking those frees at all, and you're kind of helping his confidence as well. So I think that's the big thing I took out of it as well, is his positioning. I think Max Day is definitely going to keep him in there for the rest of the year, but I don't know if it's necessary. You've James Carr, you've Tommy Conroy coming back in. Do you need to play him full forward? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely keep him around the middle. Oisín, we mentioned about Cillian O'Connor's goal chance. It has to be said, Armagh had their goal chances as well.
Yeah, we did. That last one from Andrew Murnan. It wasn't a definitive angle. I don't know who got the final touch on that, but it was, if that went in, that place was, there is no roof on it, but if there had been a roof, it was coming straight off. But yeah, I find it very interesting that you would prefer to have Aidan O'Shea around the middle. I think he's unbelievable in there as a ball winner, and like what he brings. It was kind of like Murphy. I said for years that Murphy should be in it's kind of bad. It was bad because he was the best player in around the middle, but he was also the best player in and around the forward line. And I think something similar there with Aidan O'Shea for ball winning, at least,
Potentially, yeah. But see, my issue with that was Mayo, particularly against Dublin, they'd always put him in there full forward. They'd let him be picked up by about 3 different people, and then they'd fire the worst aimless high ball in on top of him. That would be like, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. And they just kick it to him because, well, you're 6'5", go catch that and run through everybody like you did against Sligo. Like, it's not going to happen against the best teams. So if Mayo are going to put him there, they need a game plan for how they're going to get quality ball into him. Connor Loftus-Luke at centre half back could be a potential loophole in how they're trying to do that. Obviously, get someone who is a great kick passer from a bit deeper. I have to say, when I first saw his name there in the FBD League, it definitely popped up as being, this is just, a pre-season tournament. They've persisted with it in the league now. 2 games in, he's continuing at centre back. What do you make of this experiment? I think it's fair to say.
Look, I think I said this last week as well, and that, look, it's going to come across that, look, I'm probably being very hard on Mayo, but I don't think it's going to work. I just don't think it will. He's done well so far, but there's a big difference between doing it now and doing it later on during the year. And it's the same thing again, is that I think it's worth doing at the moment, but then at the same time, when he's putting the back foot and Paddy Clifford and Sean O'Shea, whichever one of them's out centre half forward, is he going to be able to play the position? I don't think you can get away with it. I think if you want to play him in that quarterback role, I think you have to play him in the forwards and have him dropping back to do it as well. And you have to have a definite centre back. I don't think in the modern game that you can really get away with without a deep line centre half back anymore at this stage. So yeah, like, I think he's done very well and he's good in the ball, and you can see the merits of it as well. If you're going to play O'Shea in there, that you have a player that can play ball in there as well. But personally, in my opinion, I just think that the costs of it later on the year defensively could be too much. That I'd still absolutely have Loftus in the team, but maybe I'd have him further up as maybe a wing forward that drops back to do it as well, rather than having him as the actual centre half back. I keep going back to the Dermot Connolly example, that when he did it for Vincent's, and look, in the end, it just didn't work. And I think Loftus, like, it's a similar style player, similar idea to the Connolly doing it with Vincent's. And I just think it'll be the same thing on that. This has been a debate kind of for a while, whether your centre half back should be a ball player. And just every time I've seen it, I just haven't been convinced by it as well. So, like, yeah, he's done very well, but we're in the National League here as well. And I do think that once Paddy Durkin starts coming back in there as well, you'll have another strong half back in there as well. Get on McLaughlin back in and just fill your half back line with out and out defenders, because you don't need to be. I don't think you need to be carrying a forward in the backs when you can just play him up in the wing forward line, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. That being said, obviously we said this Mayo found themselves 5 points up with 10 minutes to go. Oisín, like Luke obviously said there, once Mayo got those 5 points ahead, they switched it up. They weren't as pushed up on Rafferty's kickouts. What else do you think helped you pull it back at the end before Ian O'Neill hit the free to level it up?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it was off air. I overheard a lot of Mayo people speaking, and it was in a word, cuteness. You had that one where I think Rafferty gave the ball away. He was the 45, and from where I was standing, he was in no hurry to get back. The goal was a gape, but they didn't need to go for anything. They were up at that stage. And I think it was Owen McLaughlin actually kicked a very, very silly wide, and that gave Armagh another chance to get up the field, as they invariably did, and draw the game level. So cuteness, I mean, at that point, maybe, I don't know, make a sub or feign an injury, and it's the dark arts. And I know people will probably get angry at me for saying that, but I think it's something that Mayo have definitely lacked in the past, whereas there are a lot of shrewd teams out there, Dublin being masters of the dark arts. And it kills a game, it kills momentum. At that point, you've got the sixth, I don't want to say 16th man on the field, because now it sounds, there's a stigma with that now. But
we're not chemical drugs, boys. It's all right.
Happy days. You had the crowd on our side. You had the crowd on Armagh's side. The wind at their backs. Well, not literally, but they were pushing for an equaliser, and Mayo really ought to have seen that game out and just, I don't know, take a knee.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that McLaughlin definitely shouldn't have taken that shot on. But then again, if it came off, he's a hero, but the percentage-wise of that going over was probably pretty low. Luke, a draw. Obviously, Max Day now 2 games in, 2 draws. I mean, I wonder what the odds would have been on that. Obviously, McGeaney is completely different. He's had his feet under the table with Armagh now since 2015. With Max Day, where do you think his headset would be at now with this Mayo side? 2 games in, 2 draws.
Do you know what? I think he'll actually be very happy. And that, to be honest, I've been a lot more positive about Mayo than what I thought I would have been. And that I think with the Keegan news, with the Oisín Mullen news, I did fear for them a little bit in the league. That you look at some of the fellas that have come in, Dave McBride, Brickenden, they've done fairly well in there. Like that full back line is entirely new. You could say Jack Coyne's in there as well. They're all fellas that weren't starting previous years. They've all come in as well. There's huge change in there too. And the fact that I have 2 games against 2 probably of the form sides in Division 1 as well, I think it's realistic enough to say that Galway and Armagh will probably both be top 4 in the top 4 of Division 1 this year as well. So to come out of those 2 games with results, I suppose, is definitely positive. Like it's funny, last week I suppose Mayo got the benefit of a ration of clearance as well when Galway should have held onto the ball, and then they were a victim of doing that themselves a little bit too. So look, they're the breaks, I suppose, a little bit. I think a draw was a fair enough result. I thought Armagh, like you talked about being a bit slow, I thought Armagh managed the first half really, really well. I thought Myrne and O'Neill as well in particular, like that kind of threat of the 2 of them inside there as well. You talk about big target men as well. Armagh seem to have it down to a T a little bit there, but the difference with them, they just have this kind of more athleticism about them too, and that they're able to kick scores as well, and they just seem to be more of a scoring threat. And I just think that's Armagh know their strengths there as well. And just the brief said the Rafferty thing this year, it seems to be having a few more issues this year a little bit, that they have been cut out a little bit more this year, I think, than what they were last year. So it'll be interesting to watch how it keeps going. I still think it's worth doing. I think it definitely does more positives than harm, even if there are a few mistakes thrown in as well, just because they're treading.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more he does it, the better he gets at it. So yeah, that's that game wrapped up. Let's move then to Salt Hill, where Galway were beaten by Roscommon 9 points to 8. Definitely, I mean, a huge result here for Roscommon. A lot of people immediately jump into, the shock and surprise of that result. But Roscommon beat them twice last year in the league, in Division 2 in the regular season, and then in the final. Galway did beat them in the championship, but the scoreline there itself tells its story. Oisín, 51st minute, Ian Burke points for Galway. They're 4 points ahead at 8-4. And then Roscommon fight their way back with substitute Richard Hughes hitting over a point in the 5th minute of stoppage time to get the win for Roscommon. I mean, not a bad start for Davy Burke.
No, not at all. It's definitely a good start for them. Honestly, we tipped them to go down. But what do we know? They've really shown up, beaten Tyrone, big scalp, and then they're showing now that they can edge out very tentative games. I mean, by all accounts, that Galway Roscommon game was not a good game, but those games are the games that are hard to win generally, because scores are at a premium, as we saw. I don't know what's happening with Galway there. I don't know how they're dropping a 4-point lead in a game where they're not really giving up many scoring chances. Obviously, up until that point, the Rossies had only scored 4, and then for the last 20 minutes, they're able to score 5. I mean, that's something that maybe Pádraig Joyce really, really needs to look at going forward. But from what I've heard from Pádraig Joyce, little snippets I've heard of him, I don't know how much stock he really puts on the league. I think he's all in for the championship.
Yeah, true, but that's 2 games in a row, Luke, now where Galway have conceded a very, very late score to take points off them. Mayo, Ryan O'Donoghue hits the equaliser with the last kick of the game, and pretty much the last kick of the game here, Richard Hughes gets the victory for Roscommon.
Yeah, well, I think the big story from this, though, is the Comer injury, though. I think that's the thing that initially jumps out mostly. I don't know, play was stopped for a good period of time in the first few minutes from going off as well. Yeah, you talk about, I don't think as well that he placed a huge amount of stock in the league, but that's the big thing as well. It'd be interesting to hear how long Comer's going to be out for as well, because that is a huge loss as well there. And this is the kind of thing you don't really want to see in the league, is that you want to see the best players playing the championship as well. So when you see a few players get injured as well. Like particularly the night before, you saw Robbie O'Flynn's injury for Cork as well. And that's the thing, is that you really want to be avoiding these type of injuries as well. I think that's the potential to be disastrous for Galway, really, because you look straight away what they were left with. I know yesterday they were missing a few. Shane Walsh wasn't around, Robert Finnerty wasn't around, but then that left a full forward line of Desi Keneally, Owen Finnerty, and Ian Burke. And look, the scores just aren't quite there when I suppose when you start to lose Comer, when you lose Walsh and in there too, and the backup level of forwards that they have just isn't quite at the same level. Like Ian Burke's a nice player, but he always seems to be a player that's more happy to assist somebody else rather than get the scores himself. So that's the thing, is that I would be a little bit worried from a Galway perspective that maybe they don't quite have the depth if the likes of Comer is gone. When they get their first 15 out, I think that team is a serious contender for later on during the year. I think it's a really strong 15. Maybe the depth behind them just isn't quite there. You look as well that having lost Malloy and lost Silk last year, your man, the young lad of O'Flaherty stepped up a little bit too, and Neil Mulcahy stepped up a little bit as well. But beyond that, I don't see a huge lot of depth there either as well. So that's probably the worries I'd have from a Galway perspective. I don't think they'll be too concerned about league results. I think when it comes to Connacht and they get their first 15 out, they'll be backing themselves to beat Roscommon like they did last year as well. But that's the worry there for them a little bit, I think, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a fair thing to say. One thing that is hugely significant for Roscommon, Oisín, is that this league, in 2 games already, we've seen a real star emerge. In my opinion, that's Ben O'Carroll, tucked away the winning goal. Well, the goal that wrapped it up against Tyrone, I think it's fair to say, 1-2 for them. And then he hit 2 of the 5 in a row that Roscommon hit to clinch this game. He's been a serious addition.
He has, yeah, and a brilliant wee footballer to watch. It was him that put one of the Tyrone boys on his backside, wasn't it, as well? As an Armagh man, it's always nice to see Tyrone boy get skint, like. But yeah, what a player! I'm really interested. Like, I think, and this is going to be controversial, so hold on to your hats. I think outside of the Ulster Championship, the Connacht Championship is the most competitive, because you've got a couple of teams there that can win it, and I think Roscommon are coming into their 4. I mean, if they've got young players like that coming through, and I don't want to say Mayo are on the way out, but they're definitely not the powerhouse that they once were in Connacht. So It's really now a toss-up between Galway and Roscommon, and if they're able to edge, I mean, in the league, if they're beating them, if they can just do that in the championship, I think Roscommon are a dark horse in this series.
I agree.
Could they beat Kerry? Probably not yet. But
I don't think it's a controversial thing to say that Connacht is more competitive than Leinster and Munster. Like, sure, last time Dublin were beaten in Leinster, Instagram didn't exist. So, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. But
the world was better.
The world was a better place last time Dublin lost. I mean, the Leinster Championship wasn't predictable. So I think that's that game pretty much done. Luke, before we do wrap up, though, I mean, what a start for Davy Burke. 2 out of 2. And an appointment that I have to say, the second Roscommon made it, I liked it. You're bringing in a coach who has a chip on his shoulder in terms of he's not one of those managers that has been around for ages. He's on the come up. He's taken the likes of Wicklow, done really well with them. Kildare under 20s, won the All Ireland with them. Even did really successful there. I think it was Kildare Colleges or something that he recently, like, under the radar success. He's a manager that is determined and hungry. When you look at that back-to-back wins now, he's determined to stop this yo-yo trend with Roscommon where they go up as champions and get relegated straight back down. And so far, couldn't have asked for a better start.
Yeah, look, definitely. And I think, look, he's a coach that's earned it the hard way as well. You talk about his route that he's taken to get to where he is with the big inter-county job as well. It's not like one of these players that kind of wraps up, does a little bit with their own club and then ends up in the county job. That he has had to go the hard way of doing it. Like anyone that has to go and, I suppose, take the Wicklow job and to go that kind of route, I suppose, as well. He's certainly earned it anyway as well. That's an absolutely thankless job there. So I know, look, and I think as well the work he did with Maynooth as well, particularly at college as well, that hasn't had a lot of success, and he actually did bring a fair bit of success. And I know they won the league earlier on during the year, and the players that they were working with Maynooth, like that, a lot of club players, not a lot of inter-county players coming up against. Every year college seems to be stacked with scholarships and everything there as well. So the job he's done is fantastic, really. So that's like I'm delighted for him, and that's, like you said, I think that's why, like, I suppose all three of us probably tipped Roscommon to go down, is that this yo-yo effect that they have just been going down. I think everybody just penciled them in as the bottom place team this year. So to see, like, it's a great start, but let's see if they can kind of keep building on it as well. And that, because look, they'll need a few more results as well, just to make sure.
Agreed. They need to get to the magic 6 points, that's for sure. A team that definitely, in my opinion, is looking down the barrel of a relegation now is Monaghan. They back-to-back defeats, lost to Kerry by 316 to 14 points. Kerry, a side that's still without David Clifford, still without Shawnee O'Shea, no Gavin White, like Paul Gainey, players of this caliber, still to come back in, and yet they're putting 316 past Monaghan. Hugely impressive, Oisín.
Very, very much so. I mean, from a Kerry perspective, that's the stuff that dreams are made of, where you can be missing the generational GOAT, as he is, David Clifford, and, you know, still put away scorelines like that. As from a Monaghan perspective, I don't know what to say about that. Vinnie Corey came out. He says it's not time to panic. But, I mean, they're going to Donegal or next. They have Donegal at Clonus. And if they don't win that, they're in serious, serious trouble. They've obviously Ryan McAnespie is gone. He was a big player for them. And then they've McManus and McCarran both struggling. And you can see that the scores just aren't there. They're very reliant on Conor McCarthy. It took them 6 minutes to get the first score of the game. And it was a free. And I think it was 8 out of their 14 points were frees. I mean, against any team that you're going to struggle, but against that Kerry team, it's an uphill battle.
Agreed. And I think, Luke, as if Kerry didn't need any more forwards, like they've found 2 more gems there. Dara Roach, hugely impressive to me, and Donald O'Sullivan as well, man of the match. He hit the 3rd goal, which was the icing on the cake, on top of 3 points that he already had. Talk to me as well about the Paddy Clifford goal after that. But I mean, Roach, Clifford, O'Sullivan with the goals for Kerry. All of them came in the second half, by the way. But just amazing firepower again.
Yeah, look, I think this fellow O'Sullivan's brilliant. I think he did the same when he was brought on for the last few minutes of Donegal, with the hand pass score, the fisted score up there as well. That just his power that he runs with as well. He just seems to be a player that's ready for intercounty football. That's the thing, is that, and Roach has had a great start to intercounty football too as well. The first day out, I thought he was brilliant in the first half, in particular against Donegal. He looks ready for that too. And I suppose it even goes under the radar a little bit too that Tony Brosnan's not actually that established as an intercounty footballer. He is still relatively new. That this could be the year that he pushes on. And I think you talk about Gainey being missing. I think those 3 fellas are pushing really, really hard, and I wouldn't be shocked if those 3 are already ahead of him in the pecking order and already in there. So I think it'll be interesting.
All 3.
I think all 3 of them could be by the end of the league. I think all 3 of them could be ahead of Gainey in the pecking order. I think that he showed maybe the earliest sign of slowing up a little bit, and I just think these fellas look so sharp. They look really, really hungry as well. You've Killian Spillane coming on too, that everybody knows what he can do. I think he's going to be left for that impact role coming on, where he seems to excel at. It'd be interesting as well. Maybe can Paddy Clifford go out the wing forward? Might be able to do that as well. Frees up another spot in the full forward line as well. That I think potentially you're looking at Stephen O'Brien and Gainey are starting to get on a little bit there as well. But then at the same time, just to briefly mention it as well, I thought the Michal Burns role was actually really interesting too, where rather than dropping all the way back as an extra defender, where he would just end up getting lost in I suppose in the bodies in there as well, he seemed to kind of park himself in the halfway line, and he was the out ball every time, and he linked the defense to the full forward line. I thought he did that really well, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him maybe play a little bit more, especially maybe over an Adrian Spillane, because he just seems to be that bit more effective doing it as well. I think him and Moynihan might be scrapping out for that kind of role, but I thought they used it well. They're happy to kick the ball out of the fence, and then the likes of Burns and Moynihan are happy enough to kick into full forward line. And when the full forward line's that good, like it's going to take some stopping. So I think couldn't have gone any better for Perry today.
Yeah, well, the Burns role definitely reminded me a lot of what Mayo did with Kevin McLaughlin a few years ago. Like that similar kind of, he was the out ball, the link man all the time, and the guy that they looked for to string the play together. But yeah, you can't ignore their attacking prowess, and then obviously the Paddy Clifford goal. Oisín, talk me through this. I mean, the pace, the power, the skill.
Listen, I mean, I've seen people eulogizing about it, but I've seen better defending at under 8s. You know what I mean? Like how that man had so much space to run. Like where was the marking? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. Don't get me wrong, great finish, great athleticism, but he shouldn't have been allowed to get there. Do you know? But I think that was indicative of the problems that Monaghan are having. It's interesting that Micheál Byrne thing. He's very similar to Paddy Clifford. I think Paddy Clifford plays that role exceptionally for Kerry. And I'm wondering, is there a way to integrate them both into that system, or is that overkill? And maybe it would be Clifford and Byrne scrapping out for that position more than Moynihan because of the similarity in the roles. But yeah, it was a great goal. It's good. It's always good to see a 50-yard run. But I just think like it shouldn't be happening in Division 1 football.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, Luke, before we did start this game, Monaghan have to be kind of looking now over the shoulder a little bit. The last few years, they've relied on last-minute wonder points from Jack McCarron and such to keep them in the division. This year, obviously, McCarron pulled up injured against Armagh. We haven't really seen Conor McManus yet. Are they staring down the barrel of a potential relegation?
Yeah, well, I think they are. I think I think next week will say a lot as well, because I think after a great start, we'll be getting on to Donegal next, but like I think Donegal came crashing back down to earth in that Tyrone game as well. So I think, look, the fact they'll be at home in Clonus as well, I think you saw as well the Armagh game, Monaghan did really put it up to them as well. These Ulster games as well tend to be tight up there as well. So I think we'll learn a lot in that game. But look, if they don't get a result, then like they're certainly going down, I think, as well. If they lose to Donegal, that has to be the game that they're targeting as well. I know we'll be getting on to stuff as well, that there is a bit of talk about, I don't know, everything not being fully right up in Donegal at the moment. So I think that they need to get the result next week. I think it's a good point that they probably don't have the forwards right now. And yeah, look, they're definitely a team in transition. And I suppose that Division 1's a very tough place to be in transition.
Agreed. You mentioned the Donegal game. They were on the wrong end of a bit of a hammering from Tyrone. Very comprehensive victory anyway. Tyrone 16 points, Donegal 8 points. I did kind of predict that Tyrone would come back. Their backs are against the wall. Everyone's writing them off. And they certainly did that, Oisín. 16 points to 8. They're winners, but
yeah, well, actually, we on the back of the Kerry win, we had predicted that Donegal would win. So I was quite disappointed in the manner that they kind of laid down. You know, Tyrone were brilliant. Honestly, they were brilliant. McGeary back to his absolute best, I think. Carrying the ball out of defence, linking up, and being an absolute playmaker, a complete baller. But Donegal themselves, I mean, what was it? They scored 8 points, and I think, where is it here? 5 from play the entire game. I mean, they're becoming very predictable and easy to marshal with their reliance on the likes of McBrady. You know, he's up there on his own now. You know, gone are the days when he had Murphy and McFadden sort of supporting him. He's now the man, and if any team can stop him, essentially they're stopping the Donegal machine. You know.
Agreed. And I have to say, once he came off, Luke, I don't want to sound too harsh, but Donegal just did not look threatening. The second that I didn't think they looked threatening at all when McBrady was on the pitch. Like, their best scores had come from long range shots from Jamie Brennan, etc. But when McBrady went off, I thought they just didn't really look like they could threaten Tyrone at all. Yeah,
well, that's the bit of a worry I think there now is, I suppose, that full forward line. Like week 1, I haven't watched them against Kerry week 1. I was full of hope for them as well, and that, I suppose, I looked at it as well. Paddy, you saw the all the stuff about the new managerial appointment, and that Paddy Carr came in as well, and I just thought that after all the stick he'd kind of got, and everybody had been getting, I suppose, and the whole build up to as well, and then you see the win up there as well against Kerry, and just even the atmosphere, and it was even the interview afterwards from Paddy Carr, and he was getting emotional in the interview afterwards. So I was really rooting for Donegal, I suppose, in this league, and just, I suppose it's tough enough to watch them where that they've gone straight back the next week, then afterwards that they looked in disarray, I suppose, a bit, and there was this bit of hope, I think, after week 1 where McColgan played so well, kicking the 3 points. McGroddy looked great. Conor O'Donnell looked great. And then, look, they've just kind of come crashing back down to earth a little bit here now. They got an absolute lesson from Tyrone, I suppose. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if they can bounce back, because a lot of people during the entire build up to the league were saying that Donegal were all over the place. I was reading stuff as well where people were saying that players weren't even showing up to train, and that there was all sorts going on up there as well. And then to see week one with them being so committed, I really thought that, look, that'll shut everyone up now. But the fact that I suppose they followed it up with this performance as well, those questions are all back there on them now. So I think that Monaghan game next week is absolutely vital that they answer it back with a win. I think it's a good point that maybe outside of McRearty, look, you're relying on Jamie Brennan, who's never been that prolific a scorer. He's a fantastic player, but that's just not his game, and that you're relying on him to step up and score more than he's ever kind of had to have been required to do so before. So yeah, I think it's a good point that maybe they just don't quite have the same firepower right now as what they did. But yeah, look, another team transitioned, and they need to get Mogan back, they need to get Langan back and McHugh back nice and quick.
And Owen Gallagher as well definitely is another one that I'd be, rooting for him to come back as quick as possible, because he gives them a punch going forward that they really, really lack there. Like, they look like they'd no real attacking threats from the half back line. I know maybe that's not what your half back line is for, but you think about all the great sides of the last 10 years, the likes of Lee Keegan, the likes of Jack McCaffrey, like direct threats from the half back line. Donegal just didn't have that in this game at all. To give Tyrone credit then, Oisín, what they did well, like you talked about Kieran McGeary, him linking the play very, very well. Up front, McCurry, I think, showed all his experience in spades there, the amount of frees marks that he was winning and then converting very wisely. Derek Hanavan with 3 lovely points as well. They looked sharp.
Yeah, it's always nice that I have to give Tyrone props, but yeah, I mean, we all know what Darren McCurry is. He's an absolute baller. I was surprised that all of his points were from dead balls. I think it was six frees and a mark. But I mean, if they can get him, if they can get him scoring from play, and he's putting up scores like that from frees, I mean, Tyrone will be a scary prospect. Add into that Derek Hanavan, who we all know the pedigree is there. And then, I mean, one of the things that has been very prevalent in good Tyrone teams is a strong midfield. And Brian Kennedy and Colin Kilpatrick, I don't think anywhere in the country there's a stronger two. I'll debate that, and I'm not saying I'm right, but it's very, very good. And they are out and out midfielders. Whereas in a lot of other counties, like my own, you've got boys that are sort of being molded into midfielders, but they are just great. I think Kennedy scored, was it a point or 2 points?
Mm-hmm.
He was brilliant, and he was one of the players that was benefiting from McGeary breaking the lines, and then sort of that wee lateral ball. But another thing about Tyrone play that has been there since the early 2000s is long range kicking. I mean, it's never a shock to me when Tyrone don't register a goal in a game, because they're just so clinical from anywhere inside the 45. And I think Porrick Hampsey, he's unbelievable with the outside of his right boot, and he showed it again against Donegal. So I think after that first round was just a way of catching people out in the last man standing, because it got me. But I think Tyrone are very much back, and I was kind of writing them off for Ulster. I was looking around, who do we have to worry about? And now I'd be wary of meeting Tyrone at any point. I think they're a phenomenal team.
Yeah, definitely this game has been, in my opinion, two of the most inconsistent teams over the last 2 years. I mean, Donegal, Tyrone winning All-Ireland in 2021 and then do nothing in 2022. And then Donegal, I mean, inconsistency was literally the epitome of the last couple of years under Declan Bonner. So Division 1, that's the wrap on that. We'll start off with Division 2, lads. Meath, 4 goals and 8 points. Clare, 16 points. Again, Luke, very, very noticeable. Meath hit 3 goals in the first game against Cork, and they hit 4 goals in this game against Clare. Seems to be a bit of a playing style for them, or just luck.
No. Look, I think it's Colin O'Rourke bringing the campaign football that, no, I think it's that. It was always going to be a good appointment for him, because I think he's been respecting the county, and they needed that as well. I think, look, the style of play is, like, obviously you're working off brief little snippets, I suppose, from the weekend or highlights packages as well. But from everything I've heard and everything I've seen, the style of football looks good. I saw their game against Cork in week 1 as well, where look, it was a clear change in style that it was way more direct, and they're backing their forwards to beat their man as well. Like even this week as well, Shane Walsh went off injured after about 15 minutes in there too. So they're relying on other players stepping up. Jordan Morris, I think, particularly stood up as well in this one. But I think the big headline that came out of this one as well, I suppose O'Rourke was talking afterwards about Costello and Walsh as well. The fact that they're playing the Sigerson Cup as well. And I think a lot of people were quick to jump on to say that, like, if you're worried about their player welfare, why are they playing the league as well? But I do think it's a fair point by O'Rourke, is that he has a job to do, and that he's been employed as the Meath manager as well. With at the moment now, that you can't say as well, it's just a league, just rest them now and worry about it, because that's the thing is, there's genuine consequences of Division 2 now as well. He has to win games. Otherwise, if they're knocked out, they come up and face Dublin in the Leinster Championship, and they're knocked out, then they're playing Tailteann Cup as well, and he doesn't want to be playing Tailteann Cup as well. So he has to get results at the moment. And I know people that were quick to jump on this thing saying, if you're so worried about their welfare, just don't play them. But he has to win games as well. And you could argue they're his two best forwards too. And yeah, it's really, really not ideal. But I think the point that O'Rourke was trying to make is that we shouldn't be in a situation that where independent managers have to take this moral stand that they don't play their best players just because they've been playing Sigerson as well. That it should be done at a different time, that the calendar should be fixed, that Sigerson should not be overlapping the first rounds of the league.
I completely agree. I mean, like, because let's be real, every other manager is going to be playing their college players in this competition to get the wins, because as you said, Luke, like, the consequences for losing are there for everyone to see. Interesting enough, though, another thing that might be concerning definitely for me is that twice, Oisín, Clare went on spells where they hit 5 points with no reply.
Yeah. And as you can see as well, I mean, teams are posting up big scorelines against Meath, and this is in Division 2. If they do make it to the All-Ireland series and they come up against the Dublin, I mean, what harm can Dublin do to Meath if they're giving these sort of scorelines away to quote unquote smaller teams? Now that sounds disrespectful, but it's not. I mean, once you come up against like Division 1 teams, and I mean, I don't know what happened to Dublin last year, but they are a Division 1 team. They're of the quality of team that they have, they're a Division 1 team. If Meath come up against them, you know, that would be a worry for O'Rourke, I think.
Yeah, no, they definitely need to tighten up at the back, and they have some outstanding defenders. I mean, Donald Keoghan is one that has always been one of my favourite defenders. But going forward, the likes of, you know, Adam O'Neill, Jack O'Connor, the likes of Jordan Morris, very, very strong as well. Definitely a good start for O'Rourke, Luke. 2 out of 2.
Oh no, absolutely, and that's the thing. Look, I think it's a great point by Oisín there, is that, like, it was the same thing. I think against Cork, it was about 22 points, I think it was, which, like, it has to be a big concern that, yeah, like, they haven't been shipping goals, but they're huge tallies, and that, like, when it comes down to it in the Crunching Championship as well, when Dublin's defence, if they get to the All-Ireland stage and they come up against an Ulster defence, if they have to play a Derry or if they have to play a Tyrone, that a team that isn't going to be as loose, and that they're going to have actual quality cornerbacks that are able to go one-on-one with these forwards as well. Like, if they come up against like a Derry who have a Chrissy McCaig and a Brendan Rodgers and stuff back there as well, that they backed that their man to win one-on-one is with the whole time. Like, the scores are going to start drying up, and if you're still conceding those score lines up the other end of the pitch as well, that's the big worry for them as well. But this is the debate, I think it comes with it, is that, do you want to play this nice style where you're getting bodies forward the entire time, nice kick passing style as well? But the problem with it as well is that it often leaves you a bit lacking at the back as well. So look, I think the players are very happy with it. Everything I've heard from all the interviews that are coming out of Meath at the moment, very, very happy camp as well. So I do think that football's going the right direction in Meath at the moment. I think it's a great appointment. I think it works out really, really well. But that's the worry for later on in the season. And I think everybody accepts that. Even fans at the moment accept that is the biggest challenge ahead of them.
Certainly, and if they want to tighten up at the back, definitely they can take a leaf out of Cork's book. Cork beat Kildare 2-14 to 7 points. I have to say, Oisín, I did not see this one coming, particularly how close Kildare came to beating Dublin and Croke Park. The goal chance for Tony Archibald, I thought if that went in the back of the net, they could have had a serious chance of winning. And considering how Cork had been brushed aside by Meath, I thought Kildare were given to win this one, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, in Division 2, we only got one wrong, and it was this. This took me by surprise. I don't know what's going on in Kildare. I mean, 7 points in a game of football, that's what, 1 every 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, that's not good enough for a team of Kildare's caliber. I'd be interested to see who they've got coming back. Maybe they're missing, marquee players. But, I mean, even with a few players out, you should be hitting more than 7 points against Cork. I don't think Cork are the pinnacle of what they're going to face this year. And if you're only scoring 7 points against Cork, you're in trouble.
That's what I mean. Cork had 1-6 on the board, Luke, before Kildare scored anything.
Yeah, look, and that was the thing. Like, I suppose at half time, it was about 1-7-2 at half time, might have been.
1-8-2, yeah.
8-2. That it was just. I was completely taken aback by it. Obviously, like, not being televised as well, was that I was trying to keep an eye on the scores, and then seeing a half time after the performance that Kildare put in against the Dubs, like the week before, I was just shocked by it, really. And that I think Cork will be very encouraged by how in a week that they've managed to going up against a team that you could argue as well. I would argue that Kildare's forward line is probably stronger than that of Meath as well. So they're going all the way to Kildare to play that game, coming up again there as well. I know, albeit in a tighter pitch, it's not quite as wide open and as pristine as Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but like the challenge that Cork faced in there as well. And look, initially before the start of the league in our preview as well, I said the Cork were the team I was most excited to see this year. I just thought they had all the pieces as well. And I think it does show, this game shows that if they can sort out the defensive side of it as well, like they're absolutely electric up front. That like Sherlock is an absolute superstar. Hurley is a really, really good player. You've the likes of Cathal O'Mahony, he's going to come back in as well. Connor Corbett's going to be in around there too. Ryan Jones, they just have absolute superstars. Conor O'Callaghan as well in midfield. Well, Colin O'Callaghan, sorry, in midfield looks like he could be a really, really good player. I think he's going to kick on hugely too. So, like, I think they have some really good pieces, maybe a few positional changes that, like week 1 when I watched him against Meath, I wasn't convinced that centre forward was the position for Powter. I think he could be a really good as a sweeper in the number 6 role. So I think they've a few things they can maybe maneuver around. But look, that's a lot come ahead of them. I am backing Cork to come good by the time championship comes around. Obviously, they're unfortunate to be in the same province as Kerry, but I am backing Cork to go on a bit of a run anyway this year. I think they are getting better.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that as well. Cathal O'Mahony, obviously, it was who put the second goal in the back of the net right at the end of the game, putting the icing on the cake for Cork. Like, how do Kildare bounce back from this now, Oisín? I mean, like, that's back-to-back defeats now. They need to win games now. And realistically, apart from, like, even you're looking here, we'll get on to the Derry Louth game. That one doesn't look like it's going to be easy either. So, I mean, Kildare really need to turn a corner in the next one.
Yeah, big time. I mean, as you said, against Dublin, it was a very spirited performance, perhaps unlucky. But I mean, I really am speechless when it comes to this game, and I'm not just saying that because I've nothing to say. I genuinely, I'm perplexed by Kildare, and I'm hoping, because I have a soft spot for Kildare, obviously with Kieran McGeeney. Yeah, I would have a soft spot for them. I've always loved the likes of John Doyle, Daniel Flynn. Always liked watching Kildare as a team. Emmett Bolton, and like to see them go down this way, I'm hoping that they'll bounce back. I'm hoping this is a blip. Like round 1 was a blip in Division 1. Maybe this is their blip. I think every team is probably going to have a blip at some point, and hopefully this is Kildare's, and they've blipped early, and they can just get it together and sort of go on a bit of a run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, agreed. I mentioned obviously there about the Derry Louth game. That finished Derry 2-11, Louth 1-11. That was in St. Mary's in RD. So Louth did have home advantage. I predicted Derry to win. I was correct, but Luke, not in the way that I thought I would be. I mean, that was a lot closer. Derry needing that Niall Toner goal and then the subsequent points that came after it to deny Louth what would have been a real turn up for the Bucks.
Yeah, this is another one that really did shock me, and I think I saw when I was looking at the quality of the Derry team put out as well. That I tell you, it's not a million miles off full strength, and that like even from the name team they added in as well. Niall Loughlin came into the team. I know McKinless dropped out as well, but like it was really it was a very strong Derry side. I think when I saw how strong that they chose to go with as well, I think I was expecting a more comfortable victory than what we saw as well. So look, fair play, I suppose, to Louth for putting it up to them as well. That I think that there was going into the league this year, I felt that Louth kind of reached their peak maybe last year a little bit, and that I was wondering how much further can they be elevated a little bit. So well, look, it was a good performance for them as well. But look, I suppose early on going to RD, it's a tough place to go as well, real provincial type ground as well. So they came out of it with the win as well, even if they definitely didn't do it in any way convincing circumstances.
Yeah, no, they looked definitely vulnerable, Oisín. I mean, Louth were 110 to 1-8 up going into the last few minutes. Wonderful points by Tom Jackson and Craig Lennon, like wonderful team moves, really had them on their way. And I have to say, watching, I was thinking, like, are they about to do this? Like, are they about to go on and beat you? Like, because I was obviously, as I wasn't watching the game, but I was keeping up with the score line. I was keeping up with the match recaps and everything. I was another point for Louth. Now they're 2 up. And genuinely then seeing obviously the tone of goal, the way it came about, you know, a deflection off the goal, a rebound off the goalkeeper, and he's there to put it in the back of the net. It seems like Derry really got the rub of the green here, and they might have been there for the taking if they were playing against maybe a team with more quality, like a Meath maybe going forward.
Well, I mean, Louth over the last few years have not been pushovers by any stretch of the imagination, which is unsurprising considering they brought in Mickey Hart. The man is a serial winner, and it's a real test for him to go to, you know, the smallest county and produce something. So I'm not at all surprised. I had tipped last week. I had tipped Louth to beat Clare, and was very surprised that Clare actually came good in that.
And Louth should have won. They were a point up. No, they were I think 3 points up going into injury time. Clare hit 4 in a row to win.
So, I mean, I really don't think that's surprising. Perhaps with the quality that Derry have, that's the main difference in that game, is that Derry are a really, really quality team. And you've got the likes of Shane McGuigan, who is a fabulous footballer. I think that's the main difference, where maybe Louth don't have that marquee player, anybody who stands out. But where Mickey Hart is concerned, and he's always been able to do it, he'll make Louth hard to beat.
Yeah, no, and they definitely have been. I think when you're looking at it, Liam Jackson, brilliant goal there. Sam O'Roy is another one that is a class player. Like, they've built a strong team there. It is going to be difficult to see when they played this well and they still have 2 defeats out of 2. It'll be difficult to see where the points come from to keep them in Division 2, especially when they still have to play Dublin. Dublin, 2 wins out of 2, 217 to 111. They beat Limerick by in the Gaelic grounds. Luke, as a Dublin fan, obviously the performance against Kildare wasn't the best. Were you more happy with this performance?
No. Look, this is going to be my controversial take here now, but Dublin won't win the All-Ireland this year, and it's that I just don't like the way it's going at the moment, and I just think that, like, I really think that Desi's only manager in name only this year. I just think that he's really, everything about this team at the moment is Gilroy written all over it as well. Just the sheer number of bodies coming back in as well. And this is the second game in a row now where Dublin have been in convincing positions and they're retreating back into this shell that they're dropping to 13 men behind the ball and they're just leaving 2 up. And look, Limerick went on a run where they scored 1-5. I think it was maybe 1-4 might have been in a row with a black card in there as well. So, like, Dublin, I just think they have this thing about them this year, is that they seem that there's a bit more negativity about them. Like the Kildare game, you see they started with 7 defenders. The Lee Gannon started as a wing forward, but he was dropping back. That him and McEnany seemed to be rotating between this position, but they were playing as extra defenders, and Dublin were only playing with the 5 up front. And I just think we're going to see an awful lot more negative Dublin this year. I think that for whatever reason, that I think Dublin are going to choose defensive solidity, and yeah, they're probably working on this at the moment, that to have it perfect, I suppose, for later on in the year when they come up against the Kerrys. But I just don't think that the players are at the same quality anymore, and that the problem with playing the system is that like it's gonna make you're not gonna concede many goals, and that you're gonna defensively be quite good, but the score is gonna dry up in the other end. And the thing about the Gilroy era before was Dublin were very successful, but they never blew any teams away. And I think you're gonna have this thing in Leinster this year as well, is that I'd expect that the likes of Meads and the Kildares will be keeping Dublin within 3 or 4 points this year when we get to Leinster. And I just think when they come up against the Mayos, the Tyrones, even the Galways and the Kerrys, I just don't know if Dublin are. I think they're still relying on the Dublin are going to have to have inspirational performance. James McCarthy and the likes are just going to have to come back and drag them over the line themselves as well, because the emerging players coming through, I don't think any of them are good enough. Haven't seen any player from Dublin like that's new to the panel that looks like of inter-county quality, and I just don't think that they are playing. I think the style of play as well doesn't lend to a team that's going to win in All Ireland as well. So look, it's very, very pessimistic outlook on Dublin, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it this year. And I know
was there not a hint of game management off this one though, Luke? I mean, like Dublin smashed Limerick early, like in the first half, 2 goals from Brian Fenton and Dean Rock, and then they knew that they had the game wrapped up. Why not manage it out from there? Why risk an injury to one of our best?
No, it's not that aspect. It's the fact of the style of dropping nearly every single player behind the ball, and that I think from watching as well in the Kildare game, if you rewatch the Kildare game, how pronounced it was that once Dublin got in that position when they're 5 points up as well, just the negativity of it, of dropping everyone back. And it's nearly this kind of conceding ball. If you look at the possession stats in that as well, Kildare absolutely dominated possession against Dublin that day. And I just think that Dublin seemed to have this approach, and it's just kind of like a symbol of Gilroy teams just seem to have this thing that we'll set up defensively and we'll have our structures and that as well, and we're not too concerned about keeping the ball. And I know that, look, the superstars come back in. Mannion's going to come back in. Con's going to pick up his form as well. But I just don't like the philosophy of it, and I just don't think that a Dublin team with those quality of players should be playing that way. And I think Dublin should be playing as a front foot team. You look when Jim Gavin was so successful, they were a front foot team. You could even argue when they got caught out in 2014, it was because they were so front foot. But I'd rather see Dublin play that way than, I suppose, look, the way it's playing at the moment. And like other people, not me, have described it as puke football, but I just like it can be a hard watch sometimes, I think, as well. And I'd rather see Dublin go back to this front foot style that suits the players as well. I just think Jack McCaffrey, if he comes back into it as well, I think he's going to be absolutely lost in this system. And that a player his quality should be able to drive forward as well, should have the freedom to do as well, and not to be lost in this system. So that's just my concerns with where Dublin are going at the moment.
Yeah, it was definitely a passionate one there. Like, to be honest, I'm not as worried as you, but like I'm more in the sense of like, look, Division 2 is just one that we're just going to have to get out of. We're going to have to just, 7 wins out of 7. Let's go back up. Aim to beat Derry, aim to beat Meath and go back up to Division 1 as champions. That has to be our goal here. I think as long as we don't end up doing what we did in 2021, where we just would pass the ball around for an hour and then not get it. As long as we don't go back to that, I'm fine with that. Just anything other than that style of football. Yeah, you are right. Gilroy's style. Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned about. Is that if you go back to when Mayo beat Dublin in that semi-final as well, that was unwatchable football. It was absolutely unwatchable, and it was. You look at the quality of players that Dublin had. It was so, the build-up was so slow, and it was this whole thing about putting the hands up in the air and look like it was if we're controlling the tempo and all this waffle. Like it was really. It was all
it up, Luke, that we had a half of extra time to save ourselves. We were 3 points down going into that second half, and we didn't even score in the second half of extra time to save ourselves. Nothing.
Yeah,
we're floating ball in like it was a Junior B game.
But I saw positive signs last year. I thought in the semi-final against Kerry, when Dublin started to go back to what I thought was a better style. I'm just concerned that I'd like to see the players just given the freedom to play with the talent that they have. And I just, hopefully, that they're not shackled in the system. And I'd rather see Dublin just go out and give it a go, I suppose, rather than go into something where, I suppose, that, look, you have to be pragmatic and win games as well. But I think what I've seen in the first 2 games, I think is probably a bit more than what's necessary as well. I just hope that the individuals don't, like the individual talent doesn't start to get a little bit lost in this as well. Look, I'm sure it will click later on in the year, and I'll be eating my words and everything, and Dublin will be playing fantastic, everyone away, and Khan will be scoring from everywhere. Mannion will be taking shots on from all sorts, and then Dublin will be great, and McCaffrey will be back. But just at the moment, I'm a bit worried. I just don't see the players coming through as well. I think McCarthy's the big one. I think once McCarthy comes back in, I think he lifts that whole team by himself, and I think once he starts to move on, I think Dublin could be in trouble.
Yeah, McCarthy's great. I mean, I definitely hope that the scenario you were describing, I definitely hope that is Dublin's future. Oisín, what do you make of us? Back-to-back wins in Division 2, but what do you think?
Oh, well, for a small team like Dublin, that's very good. No, I mean, I don't know how much more I can add. I mean, you boys have way more of an insight to Dublin than I do. What I would say is, in the first game that Limerick played against Derry, they scored 4 points. In the second game against Dublin, they were able to score 111. So there seems to be a leak there. If they're playing as defensive, I didn't get to see the game, but if they're playing as defensively as you seem to think they are, it would be alarming to me that there's like teams like Limerick are still getting in and getting goals. That wouldn't be Armagh play very defensively. You're talking about frustrating football. Armagh play very, very defensively, but the thing is, they are very, very good at it. Like the structure is very much there, and then there's a very, very quick break.
Yeah.
But maybe the Dublin are transitioning into that team. I mean, I have vivid memories of Dublin being quite defensive at times over the last 10 years when they needed to be. I don't see why they would be doing it. Maybe they're trialing it. Maybe they're trialing this system so that when they come up against the likes of Kerry, because I mean that's where their eyes and their heads would really be. Obviously, get back into Division 1, no problem. But really, they're looking to regain their stranglehold on Sam Maguire. And maybe this is where Desi Farrell is kind of looking and saying, right, how do we beat a team like Kerry? We need to, because you need to work in that system. You need to play in that system.
Yeah, well, definitely Kerry are the team to beat. They're definitely the one that we have to have our eyes on because, I mean, but I hope we don't make the same mistake, Luke, that Kerry made a few years ago. Remember 2020? Kerry were looking at us and they ended up getting knocked out by Cork with that Mark Keane goal. They were trialing a defensive system when it wasn't the game that they were playing, and they ended up getting caught before they even got to play us in the All-Ireland stages that year. I think if we play a system that we are bad at, I think Kildare could be a lot trickier than people think.
Yeah, well, look, just to touch on as well, the Dublin have definitely especially Gavin in 2015 went straight back to the defensive system with O'Sullivan as the full-time sweeper. But I just think the difference between now and then is that back when Dublin would turn the ball over, the speed they'd break at the counter, they'd commit the bodies forward as well. And just at the moment, it's so lateral and it's so much kind of focus in possession that there isn't this. You'd love to just see that you've got the best ball winning full forward in the country in Khan. That why can't they go more direct into them as well? And that Khan is nearly he scored 4 points the weekend, and then the first week he scored 2 points as well. But he has the potential to score huge tallies, and just to not be feeding them as much as what they are as well, it is a little bit frustrating. And that, I think Dublin, they probably will, and that maybe it was a little bit too pessimistic, and that they probably will come good. They'll probably win Leinster grand like they have done for the last few years. I think they're still a good bit ahead of Kildare. They're still a good bit ahead of Meath, and look, I do think that they will probably get through Leinster without too many challenges. I just think that if they come up, I'm judging them against Kerry at the moment, and I just think that, look, if they want to try and match Kerry in that system as well, they're just relying on magic moments, I suppose, from Khan, and that they're going to have to do it themselves as well. So, look, that's the thing is that, look, as a fan, you just want to see playing a more faster style of play, and I just really don't want to see them go back to the style they played in that Mayo game in the semi-final that year, because I think that was everything that Dublin football probably should be trying to stay away from.
Completely agree. So, that's Division 2 wrapped up. For the last two divisions, for the bottom two, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to one of yous for either game. So, Luke, seeing as you are kind of an adopted Offaly man, They had a great win, O'Connor Park, Tullamore. I mean, the scoreline tells the whole story. 1-9 to 1-8 it was. I have it up here against Fermanagh. Keane Farrell, a substitute, hitting a late point off the bench to win the game for Offaly. 2 out of 2 for Liam Kearns. Not a bad start.
Yeah, look, I think we talked earlier about the Galway Roscommon game being low scoring. At halftime, this one was 1 goal and 1 point apiece. So I think that kind of summed up. It probably wasn't the greatest ever first half. But no, look, a great win for Offaly. And that, I think, look, I've obviously been really hoping the last while that they'd get to start getting those under-20s through. And in a weird way, they've done it without having to get the under-20s, that they've started to get some really good results going in Division 3 as well, that there's still the older lads are still delivering, the Rory McNamee's, the Anton Sullivans as well are still stepping up the whole time as well, like Peter Cunningham as well, the centre half back still brilliant as well. So like I think, look, Liam Kearns, like you knew when he was coming in that he was going to get a lot of optimism in the camp as well. He's a fantastic man manager as well, and he seems to really galvanise the group. This is for the second week in a row they've come out of a bit of a battle anyway as well, tough games as well, and they've come out just on the right side of a 1-score win. So look, definitely going the right way for Offaly, and look, I'd love to see them finish top 2 in Division 3 and get a little crack at the championship as well, and then they can show what a real Leinster team is.
Yeah, well, they've definitely done well so far. 2 out of 2, not a bad start. I'll go to you, Oisín, for an Ulster clash. Down 2-18, Antrim 2-17. This was another one quite similar to one of the ones we were talking about earlier, where Antrim were ahead coming into the latter stages, and then Down hit them with a goal, and then Pat Havern and Andrew Gilmore hitting crucial points as they clawed it back to win by 1. Heartbreaking for Andy McEntee and heartbreaking for Antrim. They look like they're about to pull off quite a surprising victory over a downside that is hotly fancied, but the Mourne men fight back and take the points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I saw that scoreline, I thought, what was I doing? I could have gone to that. Like an absolute magical game. What I would say is, from a Down perspective, I don't know how happy they'll be with that. Conceding 2-17 from Antrim. I mean, Antrim are not a powerhouse in Ulster football, and Down are very much hoping to be a powerhouse in Ulster football. All of the writing is on the cards that they may well be. They've got Laverty in, a Kilcoo man, who hopefully will bring a couple of bodies along with him. Obviously, Kilcoo haven't been too favourable in the county's eyes. They haven't been togging out for the county. So the hope there for Down is that with Laverty in there, they'll start to go on the ascendancy. I think it was Paddy Andrews tipped, or maybe it was somebody else on that podcast tipped a Down Derry final, I think. But on the showing of that, I wouldn't say Down, I'd say Down are very much a team in transition. But for Antrim, I mean, that scares me as an Armagh fan. We have them in the preliminaries, and I mean, if they're pulling off performances like that, maybe there won't be such a bye as maybe people would think there would be, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's that, you know, on the one hand, is it that Down were poor? Is it that Antrim were fantastic? I mean, like, they had the loss to Offaly there in the first week, but bouncing back and putting in a great performance like that, certainly something to hold their heads high about. Luke, this game, however, was not close at all. Westmeath 4-16, Longford 9 points. Longford, and the maddest thing is, Longford were actually really good in the first half. They hit 4 points in a row. Hit 5 points in a row. Desi Reynolds with 3 of them. And then Westmeath blew them away in the second half. Goals from John Heslin, Sam McCartan, Lorcan Dolan, Luke Loughlin. Just a terrible day at the office for Paddy Christie's side. And after winning the O'Byrne Cup, one of the absolutely just worst O'Byrne Cups I've ever seen, a team getting to the final, having offered a team a bye in the semi-final. Obviously, they won that, and now they followed up with back-to-back defeats in the league. Not the best start.
Yeah, look, and I think I've learned personally, a huge lesson from this as well, is that when we did our preview to this as well, I'm never going to read into the O'Byrne Cup again. And that I thought they were brilliant in the O'Byrne Cup, and that they were putting great score lines up and everything as well. And I thought Longford really looked to me. I was like, Longford are absolutely firing at the moment. And to be honest, they've been an absolute disaster in the Division 3 so far. So look, I think there's just a further reason for the O'Byrne Cup to be scrapped, is that like it seems to have no bearing whatsoever, I suppose, on anything. I think, look, they'll be a little bit alarmed. I think Longford by it as well. Is that look the first 2 games have not gone well for them at all. So like I think they've got the quality as well to be doing better than this at the moment. So they'll be a little bit puzzled as to what's going on. But look, they'll just have to reconvene quite quickly. But you talk about like Westmeath as well. Looked at a tough fixture against Cavan week 1. They came out the wrong side of that, but not by too much as well. I think they were on top of the Tailteann last year in the final, but I think I'm not fully shocked that I think Cavan are the best team in Division 3 by a good bit this year as well. So it's not a disastrous first day out for them. They were competitive enough. And you look as well, when any team that's in Division 3 in particular that has like Luke Loughlin, McCartan, Heslin as well, that's an absolutely electric forward line as well. So to see them score 4-16 score line isn't too surprising really as well. And you know what, I think it's the only division where I think our top half of the table is probably going to end up being correct, where our predictions of Cavan and Westmeath going up, I'd be still pretty confident based on what I've seen so far that they'll be the 2.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely put in a very, very strong performance there, Westmeath. And so did Cavan, beating Tipperary by 119-107. Another victory for Mickey Graham's side, 2 out of 2 in Division 3. And considering last time that they were relegated from Division 3 when everybody thought they were going to be promoted, not a bad start this time, Oisín.
No, not at all. I mean, it always surprises me to see Cavan so far down the ranks, because when they come to the Ulster, they're no pushovers. But yeah, I mean, Tipperary seem to be a team in transition. I think that's
every year they're in transition. They lose their whole team every year. I don't know.
That's true. Something in the water down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely a good start for Cavan. I mean, I think as Luke rightly said, Westmeath and Cavan are pretty much a cert to go into Division 2, and that's when you'll really see what Cavan and Westmeath are made of. I am surprised at Tipperary now. I am surprised that they were beaten by 12 points. I mean, obviously, I didn't see the game. It wasn't shown anywhere. But that seems like a very heavy... I wouldn't have thought that the class was so... There was such a gulf in class there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. But, I mean, considering that they had come so close to beating Cavan in the Division 4 final last year, you think about, I think, was it Quirk's shot hitting the crossbar there last minute? If that had gone in, Tipperary would have won Division 4. But obviously now they're without Connor Sweeney, who's out with an injury. The players that they're missing, they're like Michael Quinlivan would walk into that team. Obviously, Jason Lonergan's not there either. Like Robbie Kiley recently retired. Like they're a lot weaker now even than they were this stage last year. And then we are down to the basement division. Starting, Luke, we're going to start with a side that has really impressed me actually so far now, Laois Wexford. Laois 118, Wexford 113. I predicted Laois to lose to Sligo in the opening day. And I predicted Sligo to top the division. I just thought Laois were just in disarray last year. You think of Wicklow putting 5 goals past them. But 2 out of 2 for Billy Sheehan's side. Not a bad start.
Yeah, look, and in hindsight, we probably should have seen it coming that... Look, that Laois are, and they're like Oisín was saying as well, like Cavan are too good for Division 3, like Laois are too good for Division 4, and that they shouldn't be down there as well. The quality player that they still have, like that, look, even the spine as well, Trevor Collins and Robbie Pickett as well is way too strong to be down there as well. The Port boys as well are back in now as well, and the camp does seem a little bit happier. I always, like, from everything I've heard, that Billy Sheehan's a brilliant manager as well, and that's probably why he survived year 1 when they did struggle a little bit too. So, look, I'd like to see Laois anyway go on a bit of a run anyway, and I think it'd be great to see them anyway, for their sake anyway, to get out of Division 4 anyway, to get back to where they probably should be. And look, they might be able to build a bit of momentum. They'll be playing Tailteann Cup this year as well, and who knows that after a good league as well, that they might be able to give the Tailteann a good old crack anyway, following a good league campaign anyway.
Yeah, without doubt. And then speaking of one that would have been pretty tough, Leitrim going away to McGovern Park in Ruislip, Oisín. Considering that London beat them last year in the league, Leitrim winning this by 312 to 115. And given how close it was in the championship that Leitrim barely got over the line in that game, this is a very, very significant win for Andy Moran's side, because not only were London fantastic in the league, they showed signs of putting together a good run in this league as well, obviously drawing away to Wexford in the opening game. Now Leitrim go away to Ruislip and come away with the points.
Yeah, I mean, one player who really stands out is Keith Byrne. I only genuinely, I don't follow much of the lower divisions at all, really. But his name kept coming up, and when you look into him, like, he's a phenomenal player. I think he scored 110 last weekend, and I think it was 1-4 this weekend. Like, when you've got a player like that up front in Division 4, like, you're always going to do well. I don't know much about London, if I'm honest. They seem to every now and then come out of absolutely nowhere and do something glorious, and then they kind of disappear again. So I'm wondering, is it maybe that there's I don't want to say transitional again, but I'm gonna
take a shot every time. This
is
it. Another result, obviously, then, Luke, in Division 4. Carlow 111, Waterford 10 points. Victory for Neil Carew's side. Obviously, given that they're drawn with Wicklow, good to get a win on the board. As for Waterford, disappointed start now, back-to-back defeats.
Yeah, look, this was the big game of the weekend. Now, this was the one we were all waiting for. That oh no, look, it's harsh. But no, I think
they have the Carlow Ultras. Those
Carlow might be rising again, but no, look, I think Waterford, look, it's Waterford football just doesn't seem in a good place really at all at the moment. And I think, look, you saw the results from week 1 as well, where they got an almighty beating in that too, where, look, it's a tough time for Waterford football, and it's kind of, it definitely seems to be playing second fiddle, I suppose, down to the hurlers down there as well. Carlow as well, look, it's very, very difficult to know where they're at as well. Is that, like, these teams, I suppose, there's so little coverage of them as well. There's so little even spoken about them as well. It's really hard to even say, I suppose. That I think, look, Carlow will be hoping to get on, go back in a bit of a run like they did a few years back. But look, it's very, very difficult to know how much you can read into it as well. And I just think from Waterford as well, when you talk to anyone about the footballers as well, particularly after week 1 as well, I remember seeing after the scoreline week 1, there's an awful lot of doom and gloom down there as well. And look, I think it's two teams that probably, like, I suppose Carlow are looking at mid-table Division 4, and look, Waterford, unless something radical happens, they'll be rooted to the bottom of the table, like, not for the first time as well. So look, I think both counties need a lot of change as well, and need to look probably at their structures as well. I know they've challenges with resources as well, but it's not the greatest time for be a fan of both sides, I don't think, at the moment.
That's what I mean.
Transitional.
Need a transitional period.
Waterford need an injection. Like, they need, basically they need what Carlow got with their Carlow Rising time, where they managed to beat Kildare, and that was an amazing victory when they did, and they put it up to Dublin for long periods in 2017, and that Leinster quarter-final, and they were showing signs getting promoted from Division 4. But look, like, it's a thing that I've said constantly. The GAA structure, the way it is now, means that for these smaller counties, when they realise, okay, well, you're not going to win your provincial championship because Dublin are still there or Kerry are still there, and then you realise you're not going to win the All-Ireland either, a lot of players go abroad. And we saw with Carlow that even when they were in the peak of their momentum, Brendan Murphy left and went to London, and he was their best player, in my opinion. I know Paul Broderick was on fire that year, but Murphy was a quality player, and he still went to London fresh off the back of getting promoted just before the Leinster Championship. So that tells you everything you need to know about what players realistically think they can win. For Waterford, yeah, like, it's a confusing one because they were ahead at half-time in Leitrim in the opening game, and they were looking really, really good. And then they just got blown away in the second half. I think they conceded 3-10 or something in the second half to 3 points. Like, you can't let a team get a run on you like that. And then to lose to Carlow at home, it's a difficult task now for them to get any points. I'd be worried about them now coming up big, even against London, when you see that London ran Leitrim so close in Ruislip that, if Waterford have to go there, London would be eyeing that one up as a potential victory. The final game then in Division 4 of our football roundup, Oisín, I'll come to you for this. Sligo 18 points, Wicklow 12 points. Tony McEntee against Oisín McConville, two Armagh boys. Would you have had any real interest in their particular battle? Two very, very good coaches.
Yeah, well, I mean, two Crossmaglen men. I think they took Crossmaglen a couple of years ago, so they sort of would have known each other inside out. And I'd say that you know, there was a bit of pride at stake here, and obviously McEntee came out the better. But I mean, Sligo over the last few years have been a very underachieving team, from what they've been and what they really should be. And then obviously they got that sneaky transfer of Pat Spillane Jr., like a great footballer, you know. So I mean, I think Sligo, I can't remember which team it was we said about, but they are too good for Division 4. Look how far they got in the Tailteann last year. You know, they're not a Division 4 team. Wicklow, maybe with McConville's influence over the next few years, can start to build up a head of steam. But I think at the moment it's a bit too early for Wicklow.
Yeah, I think personally, I think they really missed the trick letting Davy Burke go. I thought when he left, I thought like he was in his stride there as Wicklow boss, and I thought that they were doing great things. Obviously, they managed to stay up, beating Cavan, sending down to Division 4, and then staying in Division 3 for another year. I thought the building blocks were starting to form there, but now they've gone down to Division 4, and this year they don't look like getting promoted. I'm sorry, like it looks like a fourth place finish for them. But definitely, yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see how far McConville can take them. That is the football roundup here on Play on GAA, guys. Myself, Seamus Brady, Luke Peyton, and Oisín from Third Man Tackle GAA have walked you through us. Thank you for giving us your time. If you want to see the hurling roundup, that is on another video here on Play on GAA, so do check that out. And until the next one, guys, take care.